Hey everyone, welcome to the Prime Fatherhood podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Condi, and this is episode 18. Everyone has at least one big roadblock that is keeping them from living the way they want to live. It could be that you're needing to make more money, or you need to get healthier, or it could be that you have relationships that are struggling. For most of us, it's a combination of some of these different items. For today's primer episode, I want to share the best tip I've gotten for getting ahead of these issues. We have answered the call. We are committed to a greater purpose. We are fathers. Past achievements do not guarantee future success. We will prime ourselves often to navigate each new challenge. We are capable, brave, and relentless. We will remain undaunted. Thanks for joining me on the Primed Fatherhood podcast. Primed Fatherhood is meant to help dads make weekly progress on things that often slip our minds when we get stuck in the weekly grind of work, family. My primer episodes are shorter than my interviews and are meant to be quick and simple reminders of different things that will help us to be better dads if considered and acted upon. Like I said in the intro, I've learned that no one is exempt from the struggle of life, no matter how good someone's life looks on the outside. Usually those struggles deal with money, health, or relationships. The problem is that if we keep doing what we've always done, we will keep getting the results we've always gotten. Today, I want to talk about the single most helpful tip that I've applied to my life to help me get ahead of my issues. When I go back to what life looked like 4 years ago, I was struggling with my mental and physical health, my relationships, and the management of my business and my money. I was a wreck. It wasn't until I found out that I was going to be a dad that I took a good hard look at my trajectory and kind of woke up. The more I assessed my situation, the more frustrated I was. But luckily, I had a couple of sticky sayings pop into my head over and over. The first was, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. The other saying that kept popping into my mind was, you've got to give up what you've got to get what you want. I don't know where I heard these, but they really came through at that point in time. The one thing that I did have control of during that time that I was struggling was my schedule, my work pace, and my daily activities. I had a lot of different demands on my time, taking me in 100 different directions, and that allowed me to pick what I wanted to work on and what I wanted to put off and not deal with for that day. I didn't usually abandon my undesirable responsibilities, but I did get in the habit of putting them off until the last minute. This in and of itself wasn't the worst thing. After all, the things were still getting done, but what I didn't realize was I was training myself to be weaker and weaker. Then all of a sudden, mediocre wasn't good enough, and I started to really struggle. Luckily, I had lots of great mentors around me who inspired me and advised me on how to turn things around. I talk a lot about this in the first episode, but for right now, I want to focus on one area that I got great gains from. I had a lot of areas to work on, but the first thing that my dad mentioned to me was that I should wake up earlier and I should work harder. At the time, it seemed like an annoying oversimplification of a complex problem. Then I heard essentially the same thing from my investor, who I also really admired. Then I remembered how many books talked about studies of the most productive people and how almost all of them shared the habit of rising early. At the time, I was used to working a normal day, eating dinner, going back to work until 9 p.m. or so, and then coming back to the house to watch TV for an hour or two with my wife. I'd wake up the next morning around 7:30 or 7:45, eat quickly, and walk over to my workshop to meet my employees at 8. At that point, I felt like I was being productive. I thought I was waking up early and getting a lot done. But then I looked at my dad, who is an awesome, productive engineer. I looked at my investor, and I realized that both of them woke up at 5:30 or earlier, and I realized that I could do better. So I started waking up earlier, like 6:30, and getting into my office before everyone showed up. I was amazed at what I got done when I had a fresh mind and I had time to think things through and make decisions without all of the distractions. That was my first real taste of the power of creating a daily routine that allows you to optimize your morning and your productivity. During that time, I also read an awesome book by Kelly McGonigal called The Willpower Instinct. When going through that book, I remember reading a powerful little nugget that hit me pretty hard. In it, she said, "A short practice that you do every day is better than a long practice you keep putting off to tomorrow." I had always been in the thought camp of you go all in or stay all out with everything. And what I learned during this critical time of transformation was time and discipline are too fleeting to wait for optimal opportunities to do what you want. If you want to be productive, you need to attack your task every chance you get rather than putting it off for the perfect moment. When I combined that mode of thinking with the extra time that I had in the mornings with no distractions, I realized I could be a lot more productive. Another great thing I learned from the Willpower Instinct was the idea of pre-commitment. Kelly shared the story of Cortez coming to the Americas in search of gold and silver. And I just want to read that quickly to illustrate the idea of pre-commitment. She wrote, "He, being Cortez, brought with him 500 soldiers and 300 civilians on 11 ships. Cortez's goal was to head inland, conquer the natives, claim the land, and steal whatever gold and silver they could get their hands on. The natives, however, were not going to surrender meekly. Central Mexico was the homeland of the Aztecs, led by the powerful God King Montezuma, and known for their bloody human sacrifices. Cortez's crew had only a few horses and pieces of artillery. They were hardly a powerful military. And when the men landed on the coast of Mexico, they hesitated about marching inland. They were reluctant to leave the safety of the coast where they could escape by ship. Cortez knew that when they faced their first battle, the crew would be tempted to retreat if they knew they had the option to sail away. So, according to legend, he ordered his officers to set the ships on fire. The ships, Spanish galleons and caravels, were made entirely of wood and waterproofed with an extremely flammable pitch. Cortez lit the first torch, and as his men destroyed the ships, they burned to the waterline and sank. This is one of history's most notorious examples of committing one's future self to a desired course of action. In sinking the ships, Cortez demonstrated an important insight into the human nature. While we may feel brave and tireless when we embark on an adventure, our future selves may be derailed by fear and exhaustion. Cortez burned those ships to guarantee that his men didn't act on their fear. He left the crew and all their future selves with no choice but to go forward. She goes on to explain that this story is important to understand because it says that if you pre-commit yourself to something when you're in a rational state, and that pre-commitment constrains you to complete the task, then when you are in the moment and you're forced into a weak and irrational state, you will still be able to accomplish the mission. At that point, when I was really struggling 4 years ago, I put this into play by setting my alarm for an earlier time than I was used to and placing it across the bedroom, away from the bed, so that I had to get up out of bed to turn the alarm off. There was added pressure because I knew that my wife wasn't waking up at the same time as I was, And so I felt like I needed to turn off the alarm fast in order to not wake her up too much. That one act of pre-committing myself to waking up at a certain time by putting my alarm across the room and committing to turn it off as quickly as I could got me up and moving. And that was the catalyst that helped me to create a powerful morning routine and start to turn my business, my health, and my life around. From that time 4 years ago to now, my goals have changed from survive to thrive, but I've continued to challenge myself and refine my morning routine to build more discipline, better health, and productivity into my life. Right now, I'm working 40 to 50 hours a week as a sales and marketing director for a custom design and manufacturing house called The Coreworks. We design retail spaces and we build them from the ground up. The projects are demanding. The work requires a great deal of negotiation, planning, and follow through. And that in and of itself is a challenging job. But on top of that, I'm still running Rugged Material, which is my leather goods brand, and now I've started Primed Fatherhood. I have long-term commitments from Rugged Material and some pretty ambitious goals for our life and for our family that drive me to take on this much work. But it is doable for me in large part because of the morning routine that I've been cultivating since I was struggling 4 years ago. Right now, I'm waking up between 4:45 and 5 o'clock. I spend 30 to 45 minutes exercising in my basement, 15 minutes studying the gospel of Jesus Christ, 10 minutes meditating, 30 minutes studying some form of personal development or business-related content, and then 90 to 120 minutes I spend working on the single most important thing that I need to accomplish for that day or during that week. This routine has given me so much. It's helped me to lose 35 pounds. It's helped me to get back my mental and spiritual health. And it's really helped me to make good progress on my goals. My stress level is noticeably lower when I follow this routine, and I'm drastically more productive having highly focused time to tackle the biggest issues and challenges that come up from day to day. Just the act of keeping this routine has really helped me to feel like my discipline is growing and that I'm able to work harder and be more decisive and be smarter about what I take on. I've experimented with all different sequences to the routine, different exercises, different foods, meditations, study practices. And what I've really learned is none of that matters much. What really matters is that you actually take the time to chip away at your goals every single morning. One thing that has been really critical to my morning routine is eliminating all distractions. I don't allow myself to look at social media, the news, or my business stats. I just stick to the plan and focus on getting all of my most important things done in the time that I have allotted. I use different alarms in my phone to kind of cue me to go from one activity to the next in the morning so that I stay mostly on track. I've learned to not be too strict with it, but to try to get the essence of what I'm accomplishing by each of those different time blocks in the morning. The biggest thing to remember is just that this time is so precious. It's your best chance for overcoming your challenges. So I try not to allow anyone to take that time from me by allowing their distractions in during that time, whether it's social media or anything else. Another element of this is sleep. I know that most of the time we want to sleep in because we feel like if we're rested, then we're more productive. I also know that sleep is really an important part of being healthy. And so I track my sleep constantly by wearing the Garmin watch while I sleep. But what I found is that if there's a day that I miss the morning routine, I struggle much more and my week doesn't turn out as productive as when I get all the sleep and sacrifice the morning routine. It's literally twice the difference. I would much rather keep the routine than get the amount of sleep that I'm shooting for. And since I track my sleep, I've realized that there's boundaries for getting too much sleep and not enough. And what I found for myself is over 8 hours is too much. I feel every bit as groggy and tired when I'm over 8 hours as when I'm at 5 hours. What I work optimally in is that 6 to 7 hour range. And I know that sounds counterintuitive to a lot of what the health things say, but I honestly feel great at that point. I get every bit as much done but in the 6 to 7 hour range of sleep as I do at any other time, and I don't see any negative effects. When I get below 6 hours, that's when I start to see some negative effects, but it's not drastic until I'm under 5 hours of sleep, which is kind of crazy. I know this sounds radical, but powerhouses like Jocko Willink and Casey Neistat both report an average of 5 hours every night with no real downside. And you look at what those guys have built in their businesses and their families and the media that they put out, and their productivity is awe-inspiring. And in order to put out that much work, they have just kind of relegated themselves to only getting 5 hours of sleep, and they're okay with it. Right now, I'm averaging about 5 hours of sleep due to the newborn that we just added to the household. And I'm feeling tired, but I'm still feeling quite productive. And the main thing that I have to remind myself of is, this first month or two of having a newborn is definitely the most intense as far as sleep goes. And it's just a season with a little more intensity, but that season will pass, and then I'll get a rest, and then there's always another season of challenge or trials, but I'll take that as it comes, and I know that this isn't a permanent thing. I think the main reason that I wanted to bring this up today in this primer episode is because of that struggle that I'm having right now. I wake up, I run over to the alarm, and I turn it off, and then my instinct is, I need to go back to bed. I'm below my optimal sleep hours. And in that moment, I'm really weak and really tempted, and I have given in to the temptation to go back to bed a few times. And what I've realized is I feel way worse about my day if I've gone back to bed and missed my morning routine than the days where I just stay up, I just get to it and start my routine. And then if I am tired later in the day, I'll take a nap at 7 p.m. It sounds crazy, but it helps and it works. And I feel way better about myself. My stress level is lower and my work continues to thrive when I do that compared to when I let myself go back to bed. So that pre-commitment part is essential for keeping me on the right track when I'm in my weakest moment, when I'm ready to just hop back in bed. The reason I share all of this about my routine is because I want to share what's working for me and making the biggest difference for me being able to overcome my challenges. And I just want to remind you that oftentimes the answer to your issues can be as simple as waking up earlier. You don't have to go as extreme or strict as I have, but I can say from the last few years of experience that it sure doesn't hurt. If you're feeling like you don't have enough time to get done what you need to, I would just challenge you to look at your morning routine. The reason the morning routine is so powerful, well, there's lots of science behind it as far as if you're exercising in the morning and if you're getting your brain working by a certain time and you're doing all of this, but the overlying reason of why it's so powerful for me is because it helps me to put first things first. It helps me to really focus my day on accomplishing the big things that have to get done for that day. And it allows me to put my most disciplined self, which is myself that has been woken up and fed and is really focused and ready to tackle new challenges. It allows me to put that part of myself towards the hardest thing that I have to do in the day. And then all the other things that have to get done kind of fill in. And then all of the fun things and the distractions just kind of make their way in no matter what. But if you start the day letting those fun things in, or the little things, or if you start the day by procrastinating your big challenges, then when you have to make a hard decision or you have to do something hard, you have less discipline and bandwidth to do it later in the day. So I would just challenge you to look at your morning and think, how can I make my morning more focused, and what do I need to be working towards in the mornings in order to solve my challenges, whether it's money issues or health issues or relationship issues or any combination of those. Setting some goals, working towards those goals in the mornings will help you out. If you're interested in creating your own morning routine, I've put links to the 3 books that have helped me the most drastically. The first is the book that I've shared here, The Willpower Instinct by Kelly McGonigal. The second is The 5 a.m. Club by Robin Sharma. And the third is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. These all kind of share the same things, but they have good plans that help you to build a habit of getting up early, because it is hard, it's uncomfortable, but it's worth the pain. It's just like exercising. You've got to break your muscle down and tear it and go through the pain in order to get stronger. Well, the morning routine is uncomfortable, and you've got to do a lot of those pre-commitment type things to keep yourself going when you're at a very weak, groggy state. I plan on sharing a lot more of the science, the stories, and the strategies of my morning routine journey and what I've learned from all of my studies. But for now, I just wanted to share this overview today and give you this quick reminder that your morning routine may be the answer to what you're looking for. I really appreciate you listening today. As always, if you got something out of this episode, please share it around. Please subscribe to Primed Fatherhood and leave a review wherever you're listening. If you want to connect with other focused fathers, please join the Primed Fatherhood Facebook group. And I just want to let you know that Primed Fatherhood as a podcast has a new episode every Monday and Thursday. So I hope you tune into the next one. Thanks again for listening, and stay primed.